Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today we're going to be kind of talking about the state of the economy. So yesterday I kind of talked about the state of the game, and it really was state of game modes, not so much talking about the economy. And we're going to go from core gear all the way to Relic 10, and we're going to break it down into sections so that way it's easier to understand and kind of move, up the ladder. So we're going to go from core gear to gear 13, relics 1 through 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then relic 10. So I hope this video kind of sheds light on where I think, gives you some tips and tricks on how to be navigating this world that we're in and what to look for in the coming months. With that said, folks, like, subscribe, comment down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'd love to just check in and see how you're going through things. Really appreciate it, folks. Let's get in here. Let's talk about the economy of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Alright, so we're going to start off with core gear. Now, core gear to me is everything gear 12 and below. So gear 12 means getting your characters here, right? So you think like Forlom, this gear is gear 13 gear to me. So you think everything you use to take that character from, level 1 all the way up to gear 12, that is what I consider core gear. I think that's in one of the most healthy places it's ever been. I think they've made a lot of changes to the game to allow for further core gear, but I think the biggest thing they've done is lightspeed tokens. Not just the ones that you're getting in the episode tracks, but all of these journey quest ones. There's a lot of units in here that players early in the game would have had to spend lightspeed tokens or lightspeed bundles on. They're giving those out, but even the lightspeed tokens they're giving are really good. But where I really think this core gear change has been fantastic is the era units. With them saying, hey, as a free to play, you will be able to get to level 65. Level 65 is gear 12. You're skipping 300 Kyrotech. You're skipping so many resources, which again, those resources are where you would spend a lot of your Mark 1 raid currency on, which you can now spend on relics from Erodium heat sinks, which I really wouldn't buy these pieces because I would just buy the holo projectors anyways. But like your bronzium wiring, carbonate circuit boards, that's a great change for a lot of players. Those are huge bottlenecks that they've helped alleviate, and I think we'll feel that impact as we go down the road. Right now, there's still a lot of residual effects of the core gear where you might feel that bottleneck on your Kyrotech, but in the coming months, you're going to start seeing where that is going to be a lot easier. I'd say in like 4.5 months, kind of at like the end of the next era, I feel you'll see that change where you will have had, almost 4,000 Kyrotech that you won't have had to equip because of being able to upgrade the characters inside of the era. So I think that's been a, really, really good change for core gear. Next, we've got gear 12 gear, gear 13 gear. Now, this stuff I'm a little bit more nervous on, and I think I'd kind of split players into two categories. If you are someone who is benefiting from a lot of the tokens you've been getting, whether it's from the episode track or these journey quest tokens that we've been getting, if you've been benefiting significantly from these, I think your gear 12 gear or your gear 13 gear is going to be really, really, it's going to be in a much better spot than many of us who already had these characters, because they gave out a ton of things for free. You're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 just from journey quest stuff. That's not counting the Kyber token they gave for free. That's not counting the chromium token that we got. Like, we've gotten a ton of these just, from anniversary related stuff, not even the episode track. So you think about how many characters of gear 13 gear that is, that's pretty significant. Like even myself, I've had a couple where, you look like I've got a couple of those tokens for characters here that helped me kind of save on some of that gear. So this is, it is playing a role. It is significant. I'm not going to say that it's like, oh my gosh, amazing. But I think if you're benefiting from these, you're in a really good spot for your gear 13 gear. However, for players who've either spent on the lightspeed bundles for those or had already done that, you're not getting as much help from Lightspeed tokens. And at that point, I think the Gear 13 bottleneck will be a little bit more challenging, because when they added Zimbital cards and Electrum Conductors to the Mark II raid currency, which is where a lot of this stuff sits. So I think for many of us at the conclusion of this era, when those characters go in and you've got to start relicking them, there's going to be some conversation with yourself on the balance between purchasing these pieces and the purchasing of Zimbital cards and Electrum Conductors. Again, I don't know what that balance will look like. I'm not sure if, hey, you're going to be fine, and maybe you don't need to upgrade every single character right away, but you are going to have to figure out how that economy looks. I am a little bit concerned about this one, because Zimbital cards and Electrum Conductors are two resources that I think are becoming a greater and greater bottleneck. There's not really a cheap way to get them. There's no gimmick to them. Their conversion rates are not fun. And it's not like oh yeah, this is super easy. And while they're super easy here, that then bleeds into the amount that you can purchase of this stuff, which, kind of sneaks up on you sometimes. You think like, oh, Phil, you've got 400 of these materials, you're fine. If we go to Forlom here and I look at his stuff, so none on that side, but you come over here and this is where you start to need, 40 of them for every single piece. So you think, well, 400 sounds like a lot. You need 40 of them for pieces. There's some characters who need, them on each side of the fence. So it very quickly, those are going to could potentially become a bigger problem depending on all the needs of the characters. And you may want to be pausing some Electrum Conductor and Zimbital card farming to afford those pieces. So that is it. That is one area that I am a little bit nervous about. I think my suggestion would be finding the balance of, all right, when you actually need this stuff, maybe updating some of your fleet farms. But I'm going to say for capital games, one thing you might need to consider is splitting is either increasing some of the amounts we can get of those materials in the shard shop, right? Maybe thinking about increasing some of those amounts, or potentially, get one, kind of increasing the amounts we get here, just because I do feel like they are a problem, right? They're not fun, especially those purple pieces. These suck so much. So that's kind of where I'm looking at and saying, hey, let's maybe think about trying to get some of those. Now, Relics 1 through 5, I think are in a fantastic place. I think Relics 1 through 5 are really good with, again, Carbonate circuit board, bronzium wiring going here is fantastic, especially with the Lightspeed tokens, the core gear changes where you won't need nearly as much of this stuff. And so that's going to open up the possibility to spend more of it on these resources, which historically have been a very, very challenging bottleneck. I really do like this. I think it's, that is a brilliant, brilliant update on their part. Giving players that access. I've always said for a long time, in certain aspects, they just need to give us the access to things and let us choose how to spend them. And I think this was a great step in that direction. Now, we kind of talked about Electriums and Zimbital cards for Relic 6 and Relic 7. So I don't want to spend too much more time on that, as we kind of talked about how it's going to correlate to the bottleneck between Gear 13 gear. But I think with Relic 6 and 7, those Zimbital cards and Electrum Conductors, where I find them to be more problematic is when you're looking at the Relic 8 and Relic 9 materials. Relic 8 and 9, far more accessible, which then kind of hampers your ability to get Relic 6 and Relic 7 materials. So the Relic 6 and, the Relic 7 economy for Zimbital card and Electrum Conductors, those are kind of dependent on your use. If you're only going to Relic 7, then this is a fantastic change and you're in really good shape. If you're going to Relic 8, you're going to Relic 9, it gets to be that much harder, it gets to be that much more challenging to balance those resources because they very quickly get eaten up. I don't know if I have the greatest fix for these pieces, and that's kind of why I've said they're a little bit awkward. It's like if you're just looking at them from the Relic 7 perspective, there's plenty of access and materials there for you to do well. If you're going to Relic 8, you're going to Relic 9, these pieces become almost more of a bottleneck than these ones do. Simply because of the sheer numbers of these that you need. So I would like to see something get updated here, whether it's amounts or potentially looking at Relic 9 and saying, you know what, we're going to look at Relic 9 and we're going to eliminate the, need for Electriums and Zimito cards here, because we want more players interacting with that and trying to expand their roster that way. So that's just something that's been kind of floating in my head a little bit. It definitely feels like there needs to be an adjustment here. And don't think that they're not going to adjust something. Like, when Capital Games first ever did the accelerated gear, like back in the day, when you look through some of these things, like they double dropped, right, on your gear for, now obviously it's not Chirotech, but like, you know, this used to be one, this used to be one, like all these things used to be one piece. They went and accelerated all that gear to make it easier. And in that change, it quickly began to realize that it wasn't enough, it wasn't having the impact that they wanted on the game, because character shards were a problem, and so that's when they accelerated character shards. Well, I think it's a similar situation with, you know, relics and even to an extent gear right now. You know, that for, and again, I'm really just looking at Zimbitals and Electriums when I say this, looking at those pieces, maybe there's some potential adjustments because they're becoming more of a problem than Capital Games would necessarily want them to be. Now, Relic 8, Relic 9. Again, I said we're in a very good spot, and this is because of two major changes. I think one of them is I think the access to I think the rate has gotten better. Seems like they're trying to give out more of these resources, but the addition of arrow magnifiers and droid brains into the scavenger for Chirotech and for the Armatech tactical data, this salvage piece, this change is huge. I felt for a long time one of the biggest problems was, all right, you're running out of droid brains, you're running out of arrow magnifiers, you don't really have a good way to use them. The Chirotech change here has been fantastic, especially for those of us who have an excess of Chirotech where we don't really need that much of it. This is a really, really solid change and is going to allow us to really grow our accounts a lot more. The one caveat I'm going to make here, the one area I'm very sticklerish on, is for those of us who buy the episode pass, they give out these full pieces. Now this one here and this one here, it's not a big deal because they're pretty common. Like, I use those pretty regularly. But when you look at this piece, I have 6. This is 600 Chirotech, right? Like, this piece is 600 Chirotech, because to craft that piece, right? If I wanted to craft that piece, which nobody I need has it, but if I just went to, say, the armorer who needs one of the other ones, to craft one of these pieces, it's 50 of each salvage. So you think I have an additional 600 Chirotech just sitting in my account that I can't use right now. I would love the opportunity to be able to scrap those, because see here how I can scrap the individual pieces that make that up, but I can't scrap the whole thing, which if you just look, 50 of each, that's an extra almost 4 droid brains. And if you went to arrow magnifiers, right, that's about, 5, that's a significant haul of resources that I'm not able to use. It is an area that I would like them to take a look at and figure out. Even if there was a dismantling cost, it would just be nice, because I hate that they're just sitting in my account and I can't really use them. So that is an area that I think they need to potentially look at and adjust for that Relic 8 and 9 economy, just because, hey, you're allowing Chirotech, let's make sure we're allowing that big piece as well. The final thing here to talk about is Relic 10, and then we'll cover signal data briefly. Relic 10, I think, is fine. Like, the corrupted signal data, the servo motors, like, I think it's too soon to tell. And I won't really have a strong comment on that until those materials leave, like, the era shipment and get replaced with Relic 11. Like, once Relic 10 kind of enters into legacy stores, then I think we can have a better conversation around corrupted signal data and servo motors. In terms of just regular signal data, this is definitely a huge problem in the game right now. I feel a lot of us, myself included, really struggling to balance signal data just with how much you need. Not just with Relic, like Relic Delta, you have this greater access to all these materials, but signal data didn't really get updated. And then, of course, kind of in the back of your head, thinking about Relic 10, trying to salvage those materials, you've got to salvage the signal data that we already need so much of. So this is kind of, I think signal data, if corrupted signal data wasn't scrapped with this stuff, I'd probably feel better about it. If it was other materials that we used to get here, I'd probably feel better. But because it's things that I already need and many of us need so much of already, this feels like it's worsen the bottleneck to where I don't feel confident in going and equipping Relic 10s, knowing what it will take me to get this stuff back. Which has been a big reason why I've not equipped Relic 10, is because I'm looking at it from the standpoint that I need so much of this stuff to bring the rest of my roster up to more, respectable levels. Because I've felt like for a little bit here that I have a lot of relics I'd like to increase so my roster isn't quite as weak, and I need the regular signal data to do that. So I hope that some change happens. What I think I'd really appreciate would be continued once a month double drops, or some of these calendars that they've put out recently, like the holiday bonus calendar here. This was fantastic. Like, this was really, really solid. Just little things like this make a huge difference in player mentality, attitude, and enjoyment in the game. I really thought this was solid. I hope things like this continue, because it would help us get additional signal data, which we so desperately need. That's my thoughts, folks. Let me know what you think down below. Like, subscribe, comment. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.